This lesson is about photosynthesis. Many think photosynthesis is the most important process on the planet. It's where all our food comes from. It's where a lot of our fiber comes from. So think wood, think cotton. Those are products of photosynthesis. It's where a lot of our traditional fossil fuels come from. So fossil fuels are fossil plant organisms for the most part. And finally, it's been important in the history of the Earth because the photosynthetic process pulls CO2 out of the atmosphere. So there have been times when the Earth became a snowball Earth, and that occurred because when photosynthesis was arising as a process on Earth, it pulled CO2 out of the atmosphere, causing the Earth to cool down. So I'm going to write out the process here. Typically people write it out this way. So 6 CO2, which is 6 carbon dioxide molecules plus 6 water molecules, go to make a glucose molecule plus 6 oxygen molecules. So this is carbon dioxide, water, glucose, and oxygen. And this process is powered by sunlight, so we're going to call that light energy. And notice I'm going to abbreviate energy throughout here with just a big E. So light energy, and that comes in the form of photons. Photons are the particle characteristic of light energy. So I'm going to present this as a two-step process. The first step here are called the photo-independent reactions. Excuse me, photo-dependent reactions. Oops. Photo-dependent reactions. And RXN is a typical abbreviation for reaction. And the second step are the photo-independent reactions. The photo-dependent reactions are sometimes called the light reactions. They occur in the thylakoid membranes of the chloroplasts. Thylakoids are dish-shaped membranous sacs. I like to think of them as individual pancakes, and then if you have a stack of them, that's referred to as a granum. Plural of that would be grana. And the photo-independent reactions occur in the stroma of the chloroplast. The stroma is the liquid surrounding the thylakoid membranes and the granum. I like to think of stroma like maple syrup that you put on the pancakes. So the overall process here, or the first step in the process, is we have light shining down and electrons in the pigment molecules capture the light energy. By exciting those electrons. And the first step that goes along with that is that water is split. So water is composed of hydrogen ions or protons, electrons, and oxygen. When water is split, it gives off oxygen gas, and then the protons and electrons are captured in an electron carrier called NADPH2. So this is where the electrons and the protons are located now. So in order for them to end up on that carrier, you have to start with the molecule NADP. Another place the energy is captured in the first step of photosynthesis is ATP. So we have to start with ADP plus phosphate. Okay, the big thing that's going to happen in the photo-independent reactions is that carbon is going to be fixed. So carbon from CO2 is going to be fixed and converted into glucose, C6H12O6. And this is where the electrons and protons end up. In order to fix carbon, it takes energy. So energy is used from NADPH2 and ATP to fix this carbon. And the resulting molecules, again, are NADP and ADP plus phosphate. And then these molecules can be recycled and used again. So to summarize, in the photodependent reactions, water is split into oxygen, electrons, and H+ ions. Light energy is converted into chemical energy. So the light energy that started here is being converted, or is carried in as part of the electrons in this NADPH2. And ultimately, we've got light energy here is going to the pigment electrons, and then to the NADPH2 and ATP. Also, water is our electron donor. I wanted that to be an equal sign. Water is the electron donor, and sunlight is the energy source. For the photo-independent reactions, carbon is fixed, electrons and protons ultimately end up on C6H12O6. The energy ultimately ends up with C6H12O6, and CO2 is the electron acceptor, and it's also the carbon source for this organism. Okay, so just to give a brief summary again here, the names of the two reactions are the photo-dependent reactions, or excuse me, the two steps, photo-dependent reactions and the photo-independent reactions. The location of this, the photo-dependent reactions occur in the thylakoids, and the photo-independent reactions occur in the stroma. The electrons are starting here on the water molecule. They go here to the NADPH2, and they end up on the glucose molecule. And finally, the energy is coming from light, and it ends up here on the glucose molecule.